Sup, you guys? How we feeling?
I'm doing great.
Not too bad.
I'm fine, Johnny.
I'm all right. How about you, Johnny?
Well, I'm doing fantastic because we're about to rank every single track in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. We've played through them all, right?
Yeah.
Well, in that case, let's start with this tier list with Mario Kart Stadium.
Mario Kart Stadium is a decent track. It's meant to be an introduction to the game, and I think it does a good job doing that.
I agree. I think it's a B tier. It shows off anti-gravity pretty well.
I can get behind that.
All right then, B tier it is.
Next up is Water Park. This track fucking sucks.
For real. A track with a water park theme could have been super cool and creative, but they fucking wasted it.
Yeah, this shit is fucking boring as hell. I think it should go in F tier.
Hold on 1 second. I think F tier is a bit too harsh. While I agree that this track could have been so much better, the big turn is still cool to drive on and charge up a purple mini turbo, and the glider portion is enjoyable. Can we settle for D tier at least?
All right, I can do that.
All right, Sweet Sweet Canyon. What a mid-track.
Yeah, the theme is super cool, but it looks really weird with Mario Kart 8's graphics.
Seriously, why does the water look like piss? D tier just for that.
There isn't anything particularly great about this track, but it doesn't do anything wrong. I think B tier is a good place.
I also think it's really mid. How about I put it in C tier?
I feel as if that's a bit too high, but there's a shit ton of tracks to get through, so all right.
Yeah, that works for me.
Next up, we got the best track in the Mushroom Cup, Thwomp Ruins.
The aesthetic for this track is really unique, and thwomps being everywhere is super cool.
It's definitely a standout in the Mushroom Cup. I think it should be S tier.
I think S tier is a bit too high. While it is a good track, it's not perfect, and not on the same level as other tracks on this list.
I agree with Kenshi. I think it's a B tier.
No fucking way it's on the same level as Mario Kart Stadium. It's undeniably better.
In that case, I think A tier is a good place to put Thwomp Ruins. Now we're at Mario Circuit. Mario Kart 8's version of Mario Circuit is super underrated.
It's honestly one of the best Mario circuits in the franchise.
Damn, Raiden out here spitting facts.
I mean, there isn't much competition. Most of the Mario circuits are either basic as hell or just suck ass.
I think it's in a similar place as Mario Kart Stadium. It's a good track to start off the Flower Cup. I would put it in B tier alongside it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Toad Harbor is up next. I don't really care for this track.
Yeah, it isn't outstanding in any way. The multiple paths you can take is pretty cool, but there are other tracks that do it way better.
I think we should put this track in D tier. Shit is boring as hell.
Now hold on 1 second, Janet. Yes, this track is pretty boring. I think it belongs in at least C tier. The aesthetic carries it hard.
I think C tier works. We don't have many tracks that look quite like it, so at least it's somewhat unique.
All right, I can live with that.
Well, we go from mid to more mid. Twisted Mansion is fucking stupid.
What are you on about, Kenshi? This track is fucking sweet.
Sweet? The fuck you mean sweet? This shit is painfully average.
Oh, so now you all have garbage taste in tracks all of a sudden. This is one of the only tracks in 8 Deluxe that has a dark and dreary atmosphere, and I think it nails it.
Yeah, that's cool and all, but how are you gonna explain the random-ass sewer section?
Well, you see, the thing is...
Exactly. They put that in the track just for the sake of having a water section. Nobody's saying this track is terrible, Kung Lao. It's just mediocre.
It's not mediocre. It's an A tier.
Fuck out of here, Snapson. This shit is going C tier.
Oh, fuck off.
Now we have an actual A tier track. Shy Guy Falls is great.
I agree. The aesthetic is really great, and driving on the waterfalls is sick.
I think this track is actually an S tier.
Ah, hell nah, bro. What's up with you and putting these tracks in S tier?
It's a goated track. I don't know what else you want from me.
It's a good track, but S tier is too high. It should go into A tier.
Ugh, fine. Ah, yes. Here we have another goated track. Sunshine Airport.
Goated is right, Janet. Flying alongside the planes is epic.
While this track is really good, I don't think it's quite S tier material, but it's pretty close.
I think that's fair.
All right, A tier it is.
Dolphin Shoals is up next. I think this track is pretty good. The music changing, whether you're in the water or on land, is a super cool feature.
tricking on the back of an eel is really creative, and I find it pretty funny.
Before you get to the eel, there is a shit ton of pipes that you can trick off of and lead to different paths.
I think this track is another A tier. The aesthetic, music, and layout is solid.
I think A tier is a bit high. While it is a good track, I don't think it's on the same level as Sunshine Airport and Shy Guy Falls.
I'm not gonna lie, I honestly don't care for this track. I don't really like most of the water-themed tracks in this game. Put this shit in C tier.
C tier is way too low for this track. You're fucking tripping, dog.
How the hell is your opinion so garbage, Kung Lao? It's absolutely wild to me.
Fuck off, Janet. This track is mid as shit.
How about we meet in the middle at B tier?
I think that works, since Kung Lao wants to be a hater.
Whatever. You guys are overhyping this track.
No, we aren't. You just have terrible taste.
All right, on to Electrodrome.
This track is peak. It's a really fun theme, and it reminds me of the times I go to the club and get absolutely fucked up. S tier shit right here.
Peak is pushing it a bit, not gonna lie. It's a cool track, but S tier is way too high.
I have to agree with Johnny on this one. I honestly think Electrodrome is a B tier.
B tier! That's way too low for this absolute banger.
Nah, B tier is fair for this average-ass track. The theme and aesthetic can only carry it so far.
It's obvious that you guys haven't seen the Cool Bowser video.
Cool video, but average track.
Yeah, this is going into B tier whether you like it or not, Janet.
So everyone has the same IQ as Kung Lao all of a sudden?
Fuck you! It's not our fault you want to put every track in S tier.
It's not my fault that I actually have good taste in tracks, unlike you.
Calm down, you two. We still have a bunch of tracks to get through.
Okay, now we finally have an S tier track, Mount Wario.
Finally, you have a good take, Nexon. This is one of my top 3 tracks of all time.
This is one of few tracks that is separated into sections, and each section feels so different from the last.
The music slightly changing every lap is a great touch that they didn't need to add. Everything about this track is simply phenomenal.
It seems that everyone agrees that this track is an S tier. Good. Anything less than S would be a sin to humanity.
Man, we're on a streak of non-stop bangers. Cloud Top Cruise is fucking amazing.
Oh wow, Janet is glazing another track again.
Kung Lao, there's no way you don't like Cloud Top Cruise.
I mean, I like it, but I honestly say it's a B tier.
Common Kung Lao L.
The only L here is your vision, Kenshi.
You know, it's crazy that I'm blind and I'm still better than you at every game we play.
Damn, he annihilated your ass, Lao.
Can you guys stop arguing? Just put Cloud Top in A tier, Johnny.
I can do that. Well, our streak of bangers has officially ended.
Bone Dry Dunes is such a boring track.
Yeah, pretty much every desert track in this game is either mid or terrible. And this one falls in the latter.
Yeah, put this whack shit in F.
While I think F tier is too low, there is no way this track should go anywhere above D tier.
This basically confirms you guys have truly awful opinions. Bone Dry Dunes is an underrated masterpiece.
What in the actual Sam Hill are you on about Kung Lao? How could you like this track?
Well, let me break it down for you guys.
Are you sure your neck isn't the thing being broken?
Shut up! Anyways, the Red Sand theme is completely original to this track. The 2 paths you can take both have a reason to exist, and the Dry Bowser skull is epic.
The 2 paths do not have a reason to exist. And the Dry Bowser skull is a cool set piece. But other than that, this track is a straight snooze fest.
Sorry, Kung Lao, but you aren't going to convince anyone that this track should be any higher than D tier.
You guys are just a bunch of haters with terrible opinions.
Shut the hell up, jackass.
Now we're on to my favorite track of the Special Cup, Bowser's Castle.
This is honestly one of the best Bowser's Castle in the entire series.
I would say it's S tier, but it doesn't do anything new, but it does everything right.
Well, do you have any dogshit opinions to share with the group, Kung Lao?
I'll have you know that I actually like this track, and I think we should put it in A tier.
I think A tier is fair. It isn't quite an S tier track. All right, to end off the Nitro tracks, we have Mario Kart 8's version of Rainbow Road.
Honestly, the entire Special Cup has been hit or miss, and Rainbow Road is a miss in my opinion.
I mean, the space station theme is something we haven't seen before, but it takes away from the whimsical feel of a Rainbow Road.
Not only that, but it also just looks dull as shit. The other Rainbow Roads are full of color, but this one is mostly gray.
I think this track is a C tier. It's not as bad as Water Park or Bone Dry Dunes, but it isn't as good as any of the B-tier tracks.
Don't ever disrespect my beloved Bone Dry Dunes like that.
Oh, hush up, Kung Lao. Drop this shit in C tier, Johnny.
You got it. All right, first retro track of the list, and it's Moo Moo Meadows from Wii.
This is a pretty basic track, but it doesn't do anything wrong, and there are no real negatives.
I mean, have you seen the cows? They make this track 10 times better.
Wow, way to contribute to the discussion, Kung Lao.
I think this track should go in B tier. It's just solid. Next up is GBA Mario Circuit. I think this is another B tier.
Yeah, it has the same layout as the original, but they raised up a huge turn and made it an anti-gravity section.
It's a pretty good remake to a relatively boring track, so I think B tier works.
Anything you want to contribute, Kung Lao?
Give me a second, you guys. I'm ordering food.
Fucking fat ass.
Hey!
All right, I'm just gonna put the track in B tier.
Okay, you guys, just got done ordering my food. Which track is next?
Cheap Cheap Beach from the DS.
Yet another basic track, but it's part of the Shell Cup, so it makes sense.
Mid?
Is that all you're going to say, or are you going to elaborate?
It's just another basic water track. Mid?
Where do you suppose we put it then?
Fucking D tier. This is not a good track.
All right, put it in B tier, Johnny.
You got it.
Fuck both of you.
And now we're on to the crippled abomination that is Toad's Turnpike. What a waste of time.
This track is extremely easy compared to the original.
They literally made a baby version of Toad's Turnpike.
The track is not only easier, but it's a lot less interesting now. You could go a while without even seeing a car and just drive on road with no obstacles.
Now I'm being reminded of the god-awful city tracks from the Booster Course Pass. Put this whack-ass shit in F Johnny.
No arguments from me.
Back-to-back F-tier tracks is wild.
Base take, Janet. This track is the definition of basic desert track. It's so boring.
I mean, this track doesn't stick to its theme. It's called Dry, Dry Desert, yet there's an oasis with water at the end. What a stupid addition.
You make a good point, Kung Lao. While the Pokies are decent obstacles, this version of the track is just really uninteresting.
Not only that, but the sinkhole is just stupid at this point. It's barely an obstacle at this point, and is way too easy to avoid.
Throw this shit in F, Johnny.
You got it.
Next up is Donut Plains 3 from Super Mario Kart. It's alright.
Since this track is from the first game, it's pretty basic. It doesn't do anything special.
I'll say this right now. The rainbow blocks are super fucking annoying and ruin the looks of all of the tracks that include them.
Real? Anyways, there isn't really much to say about this track. How about we put it in C tier?
That works.
We've finally reached an interesting track, N64 Royal Raceway.
This is just a solid track. The glider section that got added was pretty cool.
Yeah, like you said, Raiden. This track is just a solid B tier in my opinion. It would go higher if they didn't wall off Peach's castle.
Oh, definitely.
Wait, what? Am I missing something because I thought it was always walled off?
Kung Lao, you dumbass. On the original version on the N64, you could drive to Peach's castle and just drive around it.
Goddamn, Janet. I get it, you guys are all boomers.
Whatever, I'm putting this track in B tier.
Next up is DK Jungle. This track fucking sucks.
For once, I agree with you, Kung Lao. This is just not that fun to race on.
I can't believe what I'm hearing right now. L takes from the both of you.
I'm with Johnny on this one. This track is really fun. The aesthetic alone makes this track memorable.
Fucking garbage takes. This is just a basic jungle track with random Donkey Kong shit thrown in it.
Hell nah, the bouncy flower is a cool set piece and the screaming stoneheads are really funny.
What the fuck are the Stoneheads even for? They are such a waste of time.
All right. Calm down, everyone. I had no idea we were so divided about DK Jungle. Since we are so split, how about we put this track in B tier?
Higher than it should be, but for the sake of moving on, I'll allow it.
Fine, B tier works.
Wario Stadium is next.
Yet another mid-retro track.
Yeah, while there are good additions, it doesn't really save this track from being mediocre.
I think this should go in C tier. It's just an okay track.
I don't really have anything to add. C tier works.
And now we have yet another basic and mid-track, Sherbet Land.
True, very true. But I think this track is just slightly better than Wario Stadium.
Agreed. I think the aesthetic is better, and I personally like the layout a bit more.
I like the look of a winter wonderland more than a stadium.
Well, that lame-ass comment aside, I agree with the rest of you guys. The theming and overall aesthetic is way better than Wario Stadium. How about we put it in B tier?
That works.
Next up is Music Park. This is an amazing track.
Very true, Kenshi. Driving on a piano and a xylophone is pretty cool. It's an S tier for me.
While I agree that this is a really good track, I think it's a bit overhyped.
Interesting opinion, Kung Lao. Care to explain?
Gladly. The aesthetic is pretty good. I don't think the layout is anything special, and the sections with the jumping music notes is kind of boring. I think this track is a B tier.
What an interesting take, but everyone else here thinks this track is an S tier. But to put your opinion in consideration, I'll throw Music Park in A tier.
Next up is Yoshi Valley from the N64.
I really like this one. The amount of routes you can take is really cool.
I mean, even with the crazy number of routes, there is a very clear best route with the bridge on the left.
Even so, on a first playthrough of the track, you won't know which one is the best. So it encourages you to try the different paths.
Fair point, Kenshi. I honestly think this track is an A tier.
I would agree. If it wasn't for that stupid fucking egg at the end. That thing always somehow gets in my way.
That sounds like a skill issue, Kung Lao. But I'll drop Yoshi Valley down to B tier, just for you, you big baby.
Up next, we got an undisputed S tier. Tick-tock clock from the DS.
Now, this is a take that I can agree with you on, Janet. This track is peak.
The clock theming is very original, and it is really well executed.
And the update's 8th version makes to it, elevates this track.
It seems like everyone agrees. S tier it goes.
Next up is probably the weakest track of the Lightning Cup, Piranha Plant Slide.
Even if it is the weakest track, it's still at least an A tier.
It takes the iconic underground theme from the Super Mario games and turns it into a track. Instant classic.
And the water portion using anti-gravity is really fitting.
Throw this track into A tier, Johnny.
Grumble Volcano from Wii is another S tier in my opinion.
The gimmick of the track decaying as the race goes on is really creative.
The fiery aesthetic is really cool.
Everything about this track is simply goated.
To end off not only the Lightning Cup, but the entirety of base Mario Kart 8, we have my personal favorite Rainbow Road, the one from the N64. Well, at least this version, the original sucks ass.
Talk about the glow-up of the century. This track looked okay back on the N64, but now it looks fucking amazing.
Not only that, but the layout updates are just as good.
And unlike the original, it's actually somewhat challenging.
So we can agree this is an S tier, right?
Fuck no! Put it in A tier. It's a great track, but S tier is too high.
Damn, I guess you have a based opinion every once in a while, Kung Lao. Put that shit in A.
Fine.
We have Yoshi Circuit from Double Dash next.
It's a solid track. I think it is a step down compared to the original, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah, a lot of aesthetic elements are missing, like the Yoshi Copter and the alternate path that got you an item.
This track is still pretty good. I'd say it's a B tier.
B tier works. We got Excite Bike Arena next. This is a fun track.
I don't think this track can go any higher than C tier. It's literally just a giant oval.
You make a good point, Kung Lao, but I think it should be a B tier. The ramps and other obstacles changing every time you race on it brings it up.
Agreed, it's really fun to race on.
Okay, I can settle for B tier. I'm not gonna lie, I forgot this next track was even in the game. Dragon Driftway.
Honestly, I don't blame you for forgetting about this track. This shit is a damn snooze fest.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything remarkable. All it has is a reference to Gobblegut, an enemy from Galaxy 2. I think this shit should be in C tier.
I agree. This track just isn't memorable.
All right, C tier it goes.
Well, after that 2-pack of ass, we have a peak track, Mute City.
I think we can all agree that both of the F-Zero tracks are absolutely peak.
100%. It's just stupid how we have 2 F-Zero tracks and the Blue Falcon, but not the captain himself.
True. Very true, Johnny. Anyways, Mute City is my favorite of the two. The boost panels scattered around the track makes you feel like you're actually playing an F-Zero game.
W take Raiden? I think this should go in S tier. This track is just excellent.
Next up is Wario's Gold Mine from Mario Kart Wii.
This is a decent track. The updates that were made from the original are pretty notable.
Making the part in the cave and anti-gravity section makes this track a lot more interesting.
I agree. I think this track is a B tier.
I can get behind that.
Yet again, we have another B-tier track, the original Rainbow Road.
This is probably the best iteration of this track.
Agreed. The road waving up and down when the thwomps land is a cool touch. but it's still completely flat, so it can't go anywhere over B tier.
Yet again, I hear good takes from you guys. When did you all suddenly get a brain?
Shut up, Twist Off!
I'll just throw Rainbow Road in B tier then.
We have Ice Ice Outpost next.
This shit is mid as fuck. The only outstanding thing about this track is the music. Holy shit, does it fucking slap.
Real. While the whole double paths thing is a cool gimmick, it isn't crazy.
Honestly, I'm down to put this shit in C tier. It's just a really mid track.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Next is Hyrule Circuit. I really like this track. The references on it are really cool.
Leave it to Kenshi to like the track about the guy with a sword. Anyways, I think this track is decent. It's a circuit track, so it isn't that remarkable.
I agree. It's mainly just driving in a field, and then you're in the castle for a very short amount of time.
I don't really have any opinions on this track, but I really like the Master Sword boost that you can get.
Oh yeah, fire reference? I think we should put this track in B tier.
I think it's an A tier personally, but I'm willing to compromise.
Baby Park is up next. This track is so goddamn fun.
Hell no, Janet. This track is so fucking miserable. It is impossible to have fun on this small-ass oval.
Common, Kung Lao L.
Wait, Kung Lao is actually making sense here. How can you guys have fun on this track? It's so chaotic, I never know what's going on.
That's the entire appeal of this track, Raiden. It's just 7 laps of an oval where you throw items at all of the other racers.
Janet is spitting right now. It's such a simple track, but it's super small, increasing the chaos.
You guys sound like havoc right now.
I know he would love Baby Park.
This shit is a fucking D tier at the highest.
C tier for me.
Hell nah, S tier.
Same here.
All right, everyone, calm down. It's obvious that we have very mixed opinions on this track. I personally like it, so how about we settle for A tier?
That works.
I can live with that.
Yet another terrible track. Cheeseland is fucking ass and no one can convince me otherwise.
While I can agree it isn't a top tier track, it isn't that bad.
I don't really like this track. The original was a cool space theme, but now it's just a basic desert track.
I honestly think this track is a C tier at best. It just isn't that interesting.
Yeah, I never come back to this track if I don't have to.
A bit lower than I would like, but I'm willing to compromise.
Next up, we have Wild Woods. This track is pretty good.
Yeah, the idea of an entire society living in a tree is pretty creative for a racetrack.
This track is decent. It doesn't do anything remarkable. I think B tier is a good place for it.
B tier is good.
No arguments from me.
Animal Crossing is next. I really like this track.
The Four Seasons gimmick is pretty good. Even if not a lot changes, it's still a cool feature.
I mean, I personally think it's C tier. It's just pretty basic.
I think C tier is too low, Kung Lao. While it is basic, it's still a solid track.
Yeah, Kung Lao. Keep holding those L's. This is going in B tier.
Oh, whatever. Next is, oh my fucking god, Neo Bowser City.
I think this track is pretty good. The futuristic aesthetic is pretty cool.
Ain't no way in hell yo ass just said that, Raiden. This track is fucking awful.
What? This track is really fun.
No, it isn't. It's raining on the track and it makes it super slippery. It's damn near impossible to stay on the track.
That's just a skill issue, Kung Lao. The rain adds an element of challenge to the track.
I think the word you meant to say was stupidity, Kenshi.
I'm surprised the two of you are agreeing so much right now.
Oh, trust me, Raiden. Once we get to better tracks, Kung Lao is gonna start spewing his shitty opinion some more.
You know what?
All right, everyone, calm down. It's clear we're split on this track and we can't talk about it all night. So I'll throw this track into B tier for the sake of moving on. All right, next up is Ribbon Road.
What a fire remake! This track takes everything from the original and improves upon it.
The shortcuts you can take on this track are really fun to go for.
This is just an overall great track. I think it's an S tier.
100% Raiden, this track is a banger.
Glad to see that everyone agrees.
Super Bell Subway is next. I forgot this track was in the game too.
I mean, I can't really blame you, but it's actually a pretty decent track.
Yeah, the different routes you can take on this one are cool, and the train is a decent obstacle.
This is just a pretty good track. I think it should go into B tier.
B tier it is. All right, you guys. The final track of Base 8 Deluxe, we have an absolute banger. Big Blue.
What a great track to end off on. I mean, we already said that both of the F-Zero tracks are peak fiction, but I think it needs to be said again.
Oh, absolutely. This is my favorite of the two.
Even though I prefer Mute City, this one is great.
I don't think there is any arguments that this track is a certified S tier.
Totally.
Next, we have the first city track of the ranking, Paris Promenade. For a city track, it isn't that bad.
I really dislike most of the city tracks in this game. I think this one is a C tier.
I think C tier is a tad bit low. I think B tier personally. This track is a bit boring with a bunch of open stretches of road. Its aesthetic is really solid.
I think B tier is fair. It's an alright city track.
You cool with that, Kung Lao?
Yeah, sure, I'm not gonna lose my shit over Paris.
All right, next up is Toad Circuit. I think we can all agree that this track is terrible.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's really bad.
Awful.
Fucking dog shit.
You know what? Give me a second.
I wonder what he's doing.
Done.
What did you do?
Take a gander at the bottom of the list.
That's actually fucking hilarious.
And warranted, Toad Circuit is awful.
All right, good. Let's move on to the next track.
Next up is Choco Mountain. And unlike Toad Circuit, this is actually a good remake.
I agree. I like the country aesthetic that they went with.
I didn't really care for the original, but this is a solid remake.
Yeah, I think it's a B tier.
Okay, I'll put it in B.
We have an absolute classic up next, Coconut Mall.
Probably the easiest S tier ever.
Oh, absolutely.
Hold on just a minute. While I will not deny that Coconut Mall is a classic, this remake has its flaws. The graphics are really bad, and the cars at the end only do donuts and don't move from side to side. The highest this track can go is A tier.
Raiden makes some good points. I mean, when this track originally dropped, the cars didn't even move.
I hate how you're right. All right, throw it in A tier.
Now we have probably the worst city track in the game. Tokyo Blur is awful.
Yeah, this track is super boring and it doesn't look good because it was in the first wave of the Booster Course Pass.
Even the alternate paths that show up aren't anything special. This is just a really boring track.
I would say that this is the worst track in the game, but Toad Circuit exists.
Throw this whack shit in F tier, Johnny.
Got it.
We have a pretty decent track next, Shroom Ridge.
This track is basically Toad's Turnpike, but actually good.
Yeah, this track is actually pretty challenging. I think it's a B tier.
The shortcuts on this track are pretty fun to go for as well. I think B tier is a fair place to put this track.
All right, B tier it goes.
Sky Garden is next. This is an alright track, but a really bad remake.
It doesn't even feel like Sky Garden. It changes the aesthetic, and it just doesn't look the same.
The layout is completely different from the original, and I just don't really care for this track.
Put this shit in D tier. This track isn't that good, and it sucks as a remake.
All right.
Next is the absolute banger that is Ninja Hideaway. This track is so rad.
Holy shit, Kung Lao with a good opinion for once. This track is super creative.
The sheer number of routes you can take is amazing. I don't think I've found all of them.
The music also goes hard.
Very true, Kenshi. Very true. Since we all seem to agree that this track is goated, I'll put it in S tier.
New York Minute is next. This track is okay.
This track isn't anything special, but the aesthetic is cool looking.
I like New York a lot, and I think this track does it justice. It's a B tier for me personally.
It has many of the flaws of the other city tracks, but I think the overall look of the track is good enough to put it into B tier.
I think that's fair.
Oh, it sounds like my food is here? Good, because I don't want to talk about this dog shit ass track.
Kung Lao is right. This track is actual garbage.
This is another contender for the worst track in the game.
This track is overall really boring and just not a fun time. I'm throwing this shit in F tier.
No arguments here.
All right, guys, I'm back.
What did you order, Kung Lao?
I got a pizza.
You're about to eat an entire pizza by yourself?
Yeah.
Fat ass.
Hey!
All right, everyone cool it. Next is Calamari Desert.
Finally a good desert track. This track is still as charming as the original, and it makes some pretty good changes.
True. Being able to drive alongside the train was a cool addition.
I think it's an A tier track. It's really good, but not on the same level as some of the others.
Oh yeah, I think that's fair.
Next up, we have my personal favorite track, Waluigi Pinball. I love the aesthetic of this track, and I'm super happy that it got such a faithful remake in the design. This is the easiest S tier for me, no question.
I can see why it's your favorite track, Janet. It's one of the classics for a reason. The theme is amazing and really well executed.
Normally, I would say you were glazing Janet, but this is genuinely a top 10 track for me. It's just so good.
Very true. This is a very easy S tier.
Good to see that all of you have some class. putting the S-tier track in the place it belongs. Next up is Sydney Sprint. For a city track, it's pretty good.
I mean, the layout itself is all right, but the music is top tier.
I like this track. I find it less boring than most of the other city tracks.
I'm honestly willing to put it in A tier for the music alone.
That's fair. The track itself is decent as well, so I'm cool with A tier.
Snowland is next. I think this track is an S tier. I really like the aesthetic, and the penguins are great obstacles.
I agree with you to an extent. I think this track is really good and a great remake, but S tier is a bit too high in my opinion.
Honestly, this shit is C tier in my opinion. It's just a basic snowy track. It's not really that special to me.
Kung Lao, were you dropped on your head as a kid? This track might not be a top tier, but it definitely isn't C tier.
It seems that once again, I am the only one with a good opinion.
Whatever, Kung Lao. Anyways, I think this is an A tier track.
All right, I'll throw this in A tier. That okay with you, Raiden?
That's fine.
Mushroom Gorge is next, and this one is really an S tier.
Real. The aesthetic is top tier and the music is a straight bop.
Exactly. Wii has some amazing tracks that get great remakes.
I love going for the gap jump at the end.
I don't think you've ever made it, though.
I mean, I haven't, but it's still fun to go for.
Well, this track is really good. I'm fine putting it in S tier.
Finally, we've reached yet another S tier track. I don't even think we need to discuss just drop this masterpiece in S, Johnny.
No fucking way I just heard that shit. Kung Lao, this track is dog shit.
What do you mean? It's a track about ice cream. It's an instant top tier.
Maybe in a different timeline. How about instead of salivating over digital food, you hop on a treadmill and get yourself some bitches?
You know what? Fuck all of you guys. I'm out of here.
Holy shit.
Look at what you've done, Janet.
Not my fault. His opinions are horrendous.
But was all of that other stuff necessary?
Yes, it was.
Well, I'm just gonna put this track in F tier and try to get Kung Lao back in the call.
Kung Lao.
Janet is the biggest bitch in this call.
Kung Lao, you motherfucker.
Janet, calm down. We still have a bunch of tracks left to rank, so just drop it.
Fine.
All right, next up is London Loop. Yet another boring city track.
While the music is really good, that's about the only positive for this track.
It's just a boring track. Put it in D tier, Johnny.
You got it.
Next up is Boo Lake from the GBA. This track is actually pretty good.
Like I said for Twisted Mansion, we have very few tracks with just a dark and dreary atmosphere. Even if I don't like water-themed tracks, this one is really cool. It's an A tier for me.
I think A tier is too high. Personally, I think it's a B tier. It's a cool track, but not as memorable as the others in A tier.
I'm with Johnny on this one. While this is a good track, it's not great.
Well, fine, since you guys want to be haters.
Next is Rock Mountain. Stupid name aside, this track is just kind of mid.
I agree. I find it really boring. It doesn't have many obstacles other than the rocks at the end. This track is a C tier for me.
I think C is fair. This track just isn't that good.
I have nothing more to add. C tier is fine.
C tier it goes.
Next up is a really good track, Maple Tree Way.
I think this is one of the easiest S tiers of the entire list.
Agreed. The aesthetic is unmatched. It has such a cozy feel to it.
I don't think a single person can disagree with an S tier placement.
I mean, it's all right, I guess.
Kung Lao!
Nah, I'm fucking with you guys. Put this track in S tier.
You're on thin ice, Nexon.
Berlin Byways is next, and it's pretty basic.
It's just another boring city track, but I think it's better than London Loop.
I can see this track going into C tier, but no higher.
I can agree with that.
Peach Gardens is up next. I think this track is a bit basic.
I like it. The last lap making you drive through the track backwards was really fun.
It's a simple track, but a good one in my opinion. I give it a B tier.
I think that's a bit too high. It's a C tier for me.
While Peach Gardens is basic, I think the overall aesthetic and the last lap are enough to put this track into B tier.
I agree with Kenshi. This is just a solid track.
Can you compromise at B tier, Kung Lao?
Yeah, sure, whatever.
Next up is Merry Mountain. Now, I love Christmas as much as the next guy, but this map is really mid.
It starts off really strong, but it falls off with that giant straightaway at the end.
I would put this track into the C tier. The ending really ruins it.
I concur, my dear man.
Really?
My bad.
Finally, we can talk about another good track. 3DS Rainbow Road is peak.
This one is my second favorite. It's right behind the N64 version.
Driving on planets and moons makes sense for this kind of track theme, and they nailed it. This is an S tier for me.
I think S tier is fair. This is one of the best tracks from Mario Kart 7.
Oh yeah, totally. Put this one in S, Johnny.
Got it.
Next up is Amsterdam Drift. Yet another basic city track.
I don't even remember this one.
How about I just put this track into D tier just so we can move on?
Works for me.
Riverside Park from the GBA is up next. This track is pretty basic. There's nothing remarkable about it.
True, the only things I can really think of that make this track stand out are the piranha plants shooting out mushrooms.
And those stupid multicolored blocks.
Oh yeah, those two.
Honestly, I'd give this track B tier. It's solid.
All right, I'll put it in B.
Next up is DK Summit. I'm gonna be honest, this track and DK Mountain are really similar to me.
I mean, you probably can't tell the difference, you know, because you're blind and all.
No neck.
Damn it!
Kinda walked into that one, Kung Lao. Anyways, I think I like DK Mountain more out of the two, but this track is really good.
I definitely like this one more. The snowy aesthetic is cool, and the half pipes are fun to trick off of.
I think this track is an A tier just based on the fun that can be had on it.
Works for me.
Yoshi's Island is up next. I'm gonna be honest, all of the references on this track are kinda lost on me. I've never played a Yoshi's Island game before.
Kung Lao, I can't believe you! How have you not played a Yoshi's Island game? They're so good.
They just never looked interesting to me.
All right, before Janet pops a goddamn blood vessel, let's just rank this track.
I think it's an A tier. I really like the layout, and I love the references to Yoshi's Island.
It's an S tier for me. I just love anything Yoshi's Island related.
I'm down for A tier.
All right, I'm putting it in A tier because fuck whatever Kung Lao has to say.
That was so uncalled for.
Bangkok Rush is next. It's just another basic city track. Should I just put this one in D tier as well?
Nah, put it in C tier because it has cock in the name.
Really, Janet?
That's actually kind of funny. Put it in C tier, Johnny.
You guys are so immature.
All right, C tier it goes. Fucking weirdos.
Next up is Mario Circuit from DS. I fucking hate this track.
I mean, it's not that bad.
Yes, it is, Raiden. Not only is this track boring as fuck, but this is the last DS track we got in the Booster Course Pass.
I guess that's fair.
Of course it is. We missed out on Delfino Square, Bowser Castle, and my glorious Goat Airship Fortress.
All right, Airship Fortress is a great track, but chill out with the glaze. Anyways, this track is a B tier in my opinion. Its layout is decent, and the forest area is a cool addition.
The wiggler that appears on the second and third lap is a really charming addition. I can get behind B tier.
I can't believe the fucking blasphemy I'm hearing right now. This piece of trash is a certified F tier.
Janet, this track seriously isn't that bad.
I'll ask for your opinion when you get your head on straight, Snapson.
Fuck off!
How about we compromise at C tier since Janet hates this track with a burning passion?
I'm cool with that. Can you live with that, Janet?
Fine, since we're almost done with this list, I'm cool with C.
Cool, C tier it goes.
We have Waluigi Stadium next. I'm not gonna lie, I never got the hype behind this track. It's a C tier in my opinion.
Are you fucking kidding me, Kung Lao? This track is an S tier.
Why do you think this track should go into C tier, Kung Lao?
I just don't think it's that special. The piranha plant cutouts are cool, and the half pipes are still fun to go for, but those are on a bunch of other tracks.
I mean, I see where you're coming from, but I find this track really fun. It's an A tier for me.
I agree with Kenshi.
Fuck no, S tier.
We seem to be all over the place with this track. I'll put it in B tier. Is that okay with everyone?
Works for me.
Way too low, but I'll compromise.
Next up is Singapore Speedway. This is one of the best city tracks. It's super colorful and vibrant. It's an A tier for me.
I think A tier is too high for this track. It still has some of the pitfalls that the other cities have, like long straightaways with no obstacles.
True, but I think its positives outweigh the negatives. There are a ton of interesting elements when you aren't on the road.
I mean, I really like this city, but how on earth are you guys willing to put this track over Waluigi Stadium?
Just deal with it, Janet. Put this track in A tier, Johnny.
You got it, boss man.
Now we have a city that's worthy of A tier. Athens Dash is the best city track in the game.
I can agree with you there, Ray Dude. This track has a very different aesthetic compared to the other cities.
And it has a much better layout.
I'm honestly okay with putting this in A tier. It's definitely a great city track.
I agree.
Daisy Cruiser from Double Dash is up next. This is a pretty good remake.
The cruise ship theme is really original, and it was pretty well executed.
I think it's a B tier. The aesthetic is really good, and the little touches they added are charming, like the Yoshis and Shy Guys sitting at the tables.
I agree with Necklace McGee. This is a really solid track.
Yet another neck joke. How original.
I don't have anything to add, so put this track in B tier.
Next up is my favorite track in the game. Moonview Highway is such a banger. It's an S tier for me.
While I think S tier is too high for this track, it deserves at least an A tier. The music changing whether you're in the city or on the highway is a great touch that they didn't even need to do.
Honestly, this is a top 10 track for me. I love the bomb cars. I think they're really funny.
I hate running into the bomb cars.
Sounds like a skill issue, Kung Lao. Anyways, I'm okay with putting this track into A tier.
Lower than I wanted it to be, but it works.
Next up is Squeaky Clean Sprint. They did not have to go this hard for the fucking bathroom course.
Really, this track is so good.
The amount of shortcuts on this track you can go for is amazing, and the overall aesthetic is really funny to me.
This track is overrated as shit. No pun intended.
What are you on about, Kung Lao?
This shit is super overrated. I mean, it's literally just a fucking bathroom.
Well, I'm gonna put this track into S tier and completely discard Kung Lao's shitty opinion. That okay?
Works for me.
Cool with me.
Come on, you guys. We should at least take Kung Lao's opinion into consideration.
I say it's a D tier.
Yeah, never mind.
Fuck you.
All right, next up is Los Angeles Laps. This is yet another boring and basic city track.
There isn't really anything to say about this track that hasn't been said before. I would put this in D tier.
I agree with you, Kenshi. I mean, there are absolutely no references to Hollywood on this track. Instant D tier.
All right, I'll throw this track into D tier.
Well, we go from one dogshit track to one that's even worse. Sunset Wilds is one of the worst remakes in this game.
Not only did they keep the layout the same as the original with no anti-gravity or something else, they removed the entire gimmick of this track.
Wait, I honestly don't even remember this track. What was the gimmick?
The way this track worked in Super Circuit was after every lap, the sun would continue to set until it was nighttime. And they removed it from this version of the track.
I mean, even Mario Kart Tour, the phone game, kept the gimmick intact. If it wasn't for Toad Circuit, this would deadass be the worst remake in the game.
I think it's unanimously agreed that this track is awful and belongs in the F tier.
100%. Throw this worthless piece of filth into F tier, Johnny. Finally, we can talk about a good track. Koopa Cape is an S tier for me.
Hell yeah, this is such a peak track.
While I agree that Koopa Cape is iconic, I think this remake is missing some things.
Like what?
Mainly, the underwater portion of this track has no form of obstacles, like the original or even the tour version.
I mean, that's a fair point, but it's fucking Koopa Cape, Kenshi. Instant S tier.
I mean, by that logic, shouldn't Coconut Mall be an S tier as well?
I don't think so. Koopa Cape looks better and doesn't have as many missing elements.
You make a good point, Raiden. All right, put Koopa Cape into S tier, Johnny.
On it.
Vancouver Velocity is up next. This isn't as bad as the other cities, but it still isn't anything special.
Driving through a hockey rink is pretty cool, and the anti-gravity portion is a nice touch.
While this track is more interesting than some of the other cities, I can't see it going any higher than C tier.
I think that's fair. What do you think, Janet?
I agree. There really isn't much to say about the cities.
Rome Avanti is next. I actually like this one. There are actually interesting elements to it. It's a B tier for me.
The Colosseum being a part of the track was a great choice.
I dislike most of the cities, but this one is all right. I'm okay with putting it in B tier.
Yeah, this track actually has obstacles and it has a glider section.
B tier it goes.
Now we have DK Mountain. Like I said before, I prefer this one to DK Summit, but it's very close.
While I like DK Summit more, I think this is still a really good track.
There are lots of turns, and it's sometimes difficult to stay on the track at times. And that provides a good challenge.
I don't know, man. These tracks are just too similar to me. Just put this one in A tier alongside Summit.
I guess that's fair.
Ah, man. Daisy Circuit is next. Why the fuck did we have to get a circuit track in the last wave of the Booster Course Pass?
No clue, but in classic circuit fashion, this track is super boring.
Yeah, the shortcut past that piranha plant cutout is fun to go for if you have a mushroom. But other than that, this track doesn't have anything else going for it.
I'd put this track in C tier. It's just pretty boring.
I agree with Raiden on this one. This track just isn't that fun.
C tier it goes. All right, next up is the last non-city tour track. Piranha Plant Cove is a really good track.
Yeah, the verticality of this track is something we haven't seen much of, and I think they nailed it.
This track being a temple dedicated to Petey Piranha is pretty funny to me.
You guys are glazing the ever-living fuck out of this track. This is a C tier at best.
Kung Lao.
Now hold on just a minute, Kenshi. The reason why I say this is because it's another basic and boring water track that relies on the tour track's changing layout gimmick to be interesting.
Kung Lao, your opinion is just simply wrong. This track is an A tier, and that's final.
Fuck you, Janet. This track is mid as hell.
Calm down, everyone. We're almost done with this list, so I'm just putting this track in A tier so we can move on.
Fine.
All right, guys and gals, we've made it to the final cup in the game. Let's start it off with Madrid Drive.
These tracks are still fresh in my mind, and I remember this one being pretty basic.
Yeah, once again, like most of the other cities, this just has a bunch of boring straightaways.
It was even more boring for me since I was 4 parallel universes ahead of these clowns when we raced on it.
Yeah, whatever. Just put this track into C tier, Johnny.
You got it.
And now we have an even worse track, Rosalina's Ice World. Like I said when we played through this track before, this shit is mid as hell.
I really don't like this track. That big turn at the beginning was really annoying. It's a F tier for me.
Like I said when we played this track together, there were so many better options than this basic-ass track.
I don't know what you guys are on about. I like it. It's a B tier, in my opinion.
And what a terrible opinion you have, Kung Lao.
Oh, shut up, theater boy. This track is an underrated gem.
Wrong. This track is an F tier, but to put your dogshit opinion into consideration, I'll put it into D tier.
Next up is Bowser Castle 3 from the SNES. This is such a good remake.
The anti-gravity portions of this track were a very welcome addition.
Even though I got fucked over when we played, I still had a really fun time.
Honestly, this is an A tier for me. It's a great remake, but it isn't quite at the level of the S tier tracks.
That's fair. I really like this track. I never expected an SNES track to be this good.
All right, everyone, we have finally reached the end of this tier list. We ended off with Rainbow Road from Mario Kart Wii.
Now before Johnny says some whack shit about this track, let it be known I think that this track is an S tier.
The aesthetic and overall difficulty of this track is perfect for a Rainbow Road.
Very good points, Raiden. Now then, Johnny, what are your thoughts on this track?
Certified D tier, this track is overrated as all hell.
No fucking way. Johnny, you can't be real right now.
I am. This track isn't even that interesting.
I'm with Johnny. This is a C tier for me.
Great. Of course Snappy Neck has another dog shit opinion. This track is peak, and you guys are just hating like the bitches you are.
This is just Rainbow Road enthusiast cope. I don't give a damn. This track is an overrated flaming pile of dog shit.
Enough. Now, we are very split with this track. Janet, Kenshi, and I all say S tier. Johnny says D tier, and Kung Lao says C. I think that means it balances out at B tier, so can we just put it there?
Fine, B tier it is.
Well, we were able to do it. There were a lot of disagreements, but we got there in the end.
This isn't the worst tier list in the world, and it was pretty fun making it with you guys.
Yeah, I had a ton of fun getting bullied by you jackasses. Anyways, I'm gonna go finish my pizza. See ya.
What a fucking fat ass. Well, I'll see you guys later. Peace.
Later, boys.
Catch you later, Raiden.
Talk to you later, Kenshi.